Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and today on Forgotten Mysteries, we have a mystery that probably isn't really forgotten, and that is Paper Doll by Robert B. Parker, copyright 1993 by Putnam, and this is number 20 in the Spenser series of about 40 or 41 Spenser books, so just sort of right about the middle. So a few caveats here. The first is we can't really officially consider Robert B. Parker forgotten, right? He continues posthumously with his characters being written by various other writers. He had three major series. Spenser was, the key one, and there was also Sunny Randall and Jesse Stone. And there have been books published with those other characters after Parker's death. But I like reading Parker occasionally, and I haven't necessarily heard a lot of people talk about Paper Doll lately, so I guess in a way that would be considered forgotten. And the other is that I just really like more people to watch these videos, so I thought maybe I should intersperse some better known books among my usual obscure reading list and hopefully win some hearts and minds in terms of getting people to watch the other videos and experience some other writers and books that they may not have heard of. So, Spenser, what can we say? One thing I love about Parker is that these books are very, very fast reads. You can read them in 2 nights. They are not very intellectually demanding. They're fun. Robert B. Parker has real strengths as a writer. For example, he's such a keen observer of things, which translates into his ability to describe a person, a situation, a place in a few sentences or a paragraph that really just can stop you in your tracks because you think, wow, this is so perfect. It's a mixture of observation and wit and cynicism, like all of this tied up into one really well-written paragraph. I really, really like that about him. I also like, you see, I'm a little tongue-tied here. I like his romantic relationship with Susan Silverman. I feel like Parker was sort of a brave man or a pioneer in terms of writing about relationships that don't follow the standard social definition of what a relationship or a marriage should be. So Susan Silverman is Spenser's girlfriend, although today we would probably say partner because they are together. They're not married. They don't live together, although they try it in a later book. But they're committed to each other, and they're both aware of their own and each other's foibles, and they live with it. They accept it. They realize that there are going to be ups and downs, that they won't always see eye to eye. And so they're both very mature in that way. I mean, and in some ways the two of them can be kind of immature, but the other partner just goes along with it, figures, okay, this'll pass, our love, our relationship will prevail in the end, and that is what happens. So I like that, and I know from a lot of kind of research and I guess gossip that a lot of what happens in Spenser's books are very autobiographical, that Robert B. Parker had a similar relationship with his wife that Spenser has with Susan. Their dogs had the same name, Pearl. There were a lot of parallels. And in fact, if you read other books by Parker with other protagonists, Sunny Randall, Jesse Stone, they're all pretty Spenser-like. That was the character that he knew how to write. And the books are entertaining. I can see why people would want to just read one after another. Um, they're they're fun to read, and there's always some really good one-liners. Spenser can be vulgar, right? I mean, I think we have to accept that about him. He's a tough guy with a heart, but basically a tough guy. He's not, a Boston Brahmin. He's sort of a guy of the streets, and he's quite frankly sexual, right? Where when he sees a woman that he finds attractive, he acknowledges that, and I guess today's critics might call that the male gaze somewhat, but he's just very real in terms of finding attractive women attractive and saying that. I once had an agent who was very woke, who would not let my male characters have any sexual thoughts or find any women sexually attractive. And that was a disaster. I mean, my word of wisdom, don't get a woke literary agent. You'll have nothing but heartache. But that's a different story. So those are the pros. The cons of Parker are, as I mentioned, he can be a little vulgar. He's definitely a wise ass. And I don't know about you, I have to be in the mood for a wise ass, right? For someone who pretty much every response that they make to anything that anybody says or does is sarcastic or ironic or flip. You have to be in the mood for that. I know a few people like that in life, and a little of them goes a long way. And that's what you get with Spenser. So if that's your deal, if you like that, then Spenser is your man. If it irritates you, maybe Spenser is not your man. I like it once in a while, so Spenser is my man occasionally, but not a steady diet. His books are super easy to find. They're everywhere. Yard sales, library sales, Goodwill, Salvation Army. They're everywhere. So he's really easy to find for a good price. Here's what I find, reading with a 21st century sensibility. Here's what I find probably the most problematic about Parker. It's the way he writes about race and the way he creates black characters. And I've noticed this in other books. Frankly, I think if these books were written today and submitted to a literary agent and or a major publishing house, there would be heart attacks all around. There's I guess you would call it I don't know if patriarchal is the right word, but there's kind of this sense of Spenser knowing that black people have a secret thing going on, a secret society, and that if you just know the right way to interact with black people, then they will let you in and let you be one of them and let you become privy to their secrets. His sidekick in other books, but not so much here, is a black man named Hawk. And again, I can imagine agents and publishers nowadays just being laid flat by the characterization of him because it's, somewhat stereotypical. But, I don't really hear this a lot. I mean, I can't say I've read a lot of Amazon or Goodreads reviews about Parker, but I'm sure this is something younger people would really notice about Parker and maybe not like. So it's something to be aware of. Every time there's a black character on the page, I would find myself cringing a little bit because I knew that the way Parker was dealing with that situation was, I don't know, almost like something out of the 50s, right? The 40s or the 50s, rather than the 90s or the 2000s. I guess 1993 isn't that long ago, but then again, it is. It's 30 plus years. So I guess we've just come a long way in those 30 years. The other, I can't call this negative, but the other feature I find of Parker books is that they are very, very linear. That they start out with a problem and then they proceed in a very linear fashion right through to the resolution. There aren't a lot of twists and turns. There are not a lot of surprises. There are one or two minor surprises in Paper Doll, but if you're the type of person who likes really crazy twists coming at you and, you know, the unexpected turning you upside down, you don't really get that in Spenser books. You get a sort of very linear, very detective going about his business until it's resolved. And so that's okay. I like that once in a while. It's not my favorite style of mystery, but it's enjoyable. A little bit about the plot, I can summarize it really briefly, is that the wife of a Boston Brahmin, a very wealthy man, is murdered. And the police are getting nowhere in terms of finding the perpetrator. So the widower, the husband, contacts Spenser and asks him to get to the bottom of what is going on. The story is a little... It does stretch credibility somewhat, especially ultimately the motive for the murder. But, you know, let's face it, mystery fiction does stretch the boundaries of reality, right? So we have to be willing to suspend disbelief, or some people say suspend belief, which is actually probably more accurate. So, that's really what I've got to say about Paper Doll. I liked it. It was a fun read, despite some cringy moments. I'll certainly continue to read more Parker in the future. And if anybody has any additional comments or ideas about Robert Parker, please feel free to make them below. And I have a promise that I'm reading something right now that is great. I am loving it, and I can't wait to make a video about it. But more on that in my next video. Okay, thank you, and have a good night.